Grants. This topic is under, class today we will discuss government grants. This topic is under PS 20. And according to PS 20, government grants are assistance from the government. Okay, now para mas malinaw, let's have an illustration. For example, tayo si ABC Company and we are a construction company. Now, si Philippine government, nag-provide sa atin ng 10 million pesos na assistance. Ang tawag natin yung class is subsidy. Okay? Now, may condition yan. Sabi ni Philippine government, ito yung 10 million pesos, pero in one condition, you have to construct an orphanage sa barangay kung saan located si ABC. Okay? So that's how government grant works. Mapo-provide sa atin ng assistance si government, pero may naka-attach the conditions. Right? In this case, ang condition is to construct an orphanage dun sa barangay kung saan located si ABC. Ang tawag natin dun classes, government grant related to asset. Because when you say related to asset, the condition is either to acquire or to construct an asset. So sa illustration natin earlier, ang condition is to construct an orphanage. Alright? Now, yun yung first type of government grant. Government grant related to asset. Yung second type of government grant is government grant related to income. Okay, now, according to PS 20, government grant related to income is a residual definition. Sir, ano ibig sabihin ng residual definition? Ibig sabihin niya, class, lahat daw ng government grants na hindi related to asset are related to income. Okay? Ang maganda example niyang class is naka-receive tayo ng assistance from the government because naka-experience tayo ng calamity losses. So for example, si ABC, nasira yung office niya, okay, yung office building because of, let's say, earthquake, o kaya naman typhoon, o kaya naman may flood, yung mga ganyan. So naka-receive tayo ng assistance from the government because meron tayong na-incur na losses. Ang tawag natin doon, class, is government grant related to income. Ang maganda pa yung example dyan, if you remember, nung pandemic, si PhilHealth nagpo-provide siya ng subsidy or ayuda dun sa mga hospitals na merong confirmed na COVID patients. Okay? So yun, maganda example yun ng government grant related to income. Okay, now sir, how do we account for government grant? Initially, government grants are recorded as a liability. Okay, bakit sir liability? Kasi yung 10 million pesos na provide sa atin ng government, may condition yan. Okay, so since hindi pa natin na-perform yung condition, initially, i-report muna natin yan as a liability. But as we perform the conditions, pwede na natin i-recognize yung liability as income. Okay, so sir, how do we recognize it as income? By applying the matching principle. Alam natin class, in accounting, pag sinabing matching principle, lahat ng expenses na i-incur natin, i-match natin dyan yung income na ma-earn natin. Alright? So ganun siya. Tandaan mo lang, kapag government grants, matching principle, yan lang yung i-apply natin. Okay? Marami tayong exercise later, makapractice natin yan. Now, before we can recognize income from government grant, there are two requirements. Okay? First requirement is, there must be a reasonable assurance that the actual conditions must or will be complied with. Okay? Actual conditions will be complied with. So, ibig sabihin, class, na yung conditions sa atin, na may reasonable assurance na kaya natin i-construct yung orphanage. Right? And second requirement is, the grants will be received. O talagang marireceive natin from the government yung prinami siya na 10 million pesos. So, ulitin ko, before we can recognize income from government grant, we have to satisfy two requirements. There must be a reasonable assurance that actual conditions will be complied with and the grants will be received. Okay? So, received and complied. Okay, now, apply muna natin yung class. Let's go to our illustrative examples. Illustrative example number 1. Actually, class, this is a relatively simple topic. Mapakita ko sa inyo kung bakit. Okay? Sige, requirement, prepare the journal entries for the first year to record each independent government grant. Okay, let's read the given. Pinnacle Company receive a government grant under the following independent situations. So, meron tayong 4 situations here. Dumaan tayo sa letter A. Okay, Pinnacle receive a grant of 30 million pesos from the government in order to defray safety and environmental costs within the area where Pinnacle is located. In yung condition. Okay? Naka-receive ng 30 million from the government sa government grant, pero yung condition, gagamitin mo yun to defray safety and environmental costs. Okay? Now, the safety and environmental costs are expected to be incurred over 4 years, respectively. 2 million, 4 million, 6 million, 8 million. Yun yung per year. Okay? So, sabi ko kanina, class, initially, i-record mo yung government grant as a liability. Okay? And recognize mo siya as income using the matching principle. So, meron tayong i-apply na, well, systematic allocation. O, pakita ko sa inyo, class. Now, ang gagawin ko dito, nung na-receive natin yung 30 million, entry natin dyan, debit cash, credit, deferred income from government grant. Okay? O GG na lang. Or let's call this DIGG. Okay? Deferred income from government grant. Pag sabi mo deferred income, liability yun. Tama? Sabi ko, initially, i-report natin as liability. So, how much ang class? Na-receive natin? 30 million. Now, na-incur natin yung first year na expense. Nakita mo dyan yung 2 million. Yes. So, lagyan na natin debit, safety and environmental expense, credit cash, which is 2 million. Now, Sa first year, nakasatisfy na tayo ng condition. So, ima-match natin yan. So, paano yung matching principle? Again, systematic allocation. Ganito gagawin ko dyan, class. Nilagay ko dito yung year. So, year 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tama? So, 2 million year 1, year 2 is 4 million, 6 million year 3, and then 8 million year 4. Ilan yung total niyan? 2 plus 4 plus 6 plus 8. Tama ba, class? 20 million yung total na i-incur natin na expense for years 1 to 4. Alright? Now, yung 30 million na government grant, okay, pwede natin i-recognize yan. Year 1, again, i-allocate lang natin 2 over 20 times 30 million. Ilan yan? 2 over 20 times 30 million, that is 3 million. Okay, so that's year 1. Year 2 naman, 4 over 20 times 30 million, that's 6 million. So year 3, 6 over 20 times 30 million, that is 9 million. And year 4, 8 over 30 times 30 million, that is 8 over 20 times 30 million, that is 12 million. Okay, so pag inad mo yan, 3 plus 6, that's 9, 18 plus 12, that's 30 million. Okay, so December 31, so year 1, pwede na tayo mag-recognize ng 3 million. So entry natin dyan, class, i-debit natin yung liability, debit deferred income from government grant or DIGG, credit income from government grant. Okay, or let's call this IGG. Okay, how much? 3 million. Okay, ganun lang simple. So nag-recognize tayo ng so initially, na na-receive natin yung grant, record natin as liability kasi hindi pa tayo nakapag-comply with the conditions. Okay, so nag-comply na tayo. Meron tayong expense na ni-record. Okay, matching principle. Pag may expense ka na, pwede ka na mag-income. Debit DIGG, credit income from government grant. Nag-allocate tayo, 2 over 20 times 30. 3 million yung first year natin na i-recognize. Okay? Now, FYI class, pwedeng ang alternative entry mo dito, sa entry number 3, pwedeng instead na mag-credit ka ng income from government grant, babawasan mo na lang yung dinebit mo na expense. So parang debit DIGG, credit safety and environmental expense, 3 million. Pwede rin yun. Pero ito yung mas prefer na entry. Okay? So mag-stick tayo dito. So sa next year naman, ang entry natin, debit safety and environmental expense, 4 million, credit cash. And the next entry, debit DIGG, credit IGG, 6 million. Ganun ang gagawin natin for the next 3 years. Alright? Sige. So let's go to B. Pinaka will receive a grant of 40 million from the government for the construction of a laboratory and research facility with an estimated cost of 50 million and useful life of 20 years. So pag ganito, class, may depreciation na component to. Tama? Kasi may building, or laboratory and research facility. So ganito gagawin ko dyan. Nung na-receive ko yung 40 million, debit cash, credit DIGG, liability mo na yan, 40 million. And then, kagamitin ko yun, party, pambili ng building, okay, na 50 million, debit building, credit cash, how much? 50 million. So malamang yung 40 million galing sa government, yung 10 million tayo yung sarili nating pera pinabili natin. Okay? Now, i-depreciate natin yan. 50 million, divide natin sa useful life na 20 years. Na-compute nyo ba class yung 2.5 million? Yes. So debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, how much? 2.5 million. Now, nag-recognize tayo ng expense, which is depreciation expense, pwede na tayo mag-recognize ng income. Debit DIGG, credit IGG, okay, income from government grant, 40 million, i-divide mo lang siya by the useful life of 20 years. Divide by 20, that is 2 million. O, ganun na siya. Kumbaga, parang dinepreciate mo lang yung government grant. Okay? Straight line method yung ginamit natin. Tama? Pero, for example, class, yung depreciation method ng company, let's say double declining din yung pag-recognize mo ng government grant. Pag SYD, some of the years digits din yung pag-recognize mo ng government grant. Again, systematic allocation. Alright? So, ganun na siya kasimple. Kaya sabi ko, simple lang yung topic na to. Let's go to letter C. Pinnacle is granted a tract of land. So instead of cash, land yung na-receive natin, which is a non-cash asset. The fair value of the land is 50 million. So pag ganung class, i-measure lang natin at fair value 50 million. So debit land, okay, credit DIGG, 50 million. Liability muna. The grant requires that Pinnacle shall construct a factory and employ only people residing in the region. The cost of the factory is 80 million within useful life of 25 years. Debit building, credit cash, nag-construct tayo, 80 million. Right? Now, meron na namang useful life na 25 years. Mag-depreciate natin yung building. So, 80 million, i-divide natin by 25 years, that is 3.2 million. Okay? Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 3.2 million. Okay, may expense na tayo, recognize tayo yung income. Sabi ko, always apply matching principle. Debit DIGG, credit IGG. So, how much yan? 50 million, i-divide natin by useful life na 25 years, that is 2 million. Okay, ganun lang siya. Kung paano mo ni-recognize yung expense, ganun mo rin i-recognize yung income. Kaya, systematic allocation. Let's go to letter D. Alright, Pinnacle receive a grant of 10 million from the government to compensate for massive losses incurred because of a recent earthquake. Ano tawag natin dyan, class? Government grant related to income. Kapag government grant related to income, na-incur na yung loss. So dito, because of earthquake. Okay? So as if nakapag-comply na with the conditions. So tandaan nyo. So kung nakapag-comply ka na, hindi na dadaan yan sa liability. So ang entry natin, class, for letter D, na-receive natin is 10 million, tama? So, debit cash, credit, nasaan tayo? Debit cash, credit IGG, 10 million. Okay? So, ganyan siya. Alright? So, that's the journal entry for letter D. Ganyan kasimple. Kasi yung losses na incur na yan. So, hindi na kailangan ng deferred ng liability. Diretso income na siya. Okay? Sige. Let's go to main problem number 1. Madali lang yan. So, ganun lang din i-apply natin class for the next, I think, 4 problems. Okay, so same lang. Tandaan mo lang, matching principle. Kung paano ka nag-recognize ng expense, ganun ka rin mag-recognize ng income from government grant. Alright, so let's go to main problem number 1. Okay, Ezra Corporation received a grant of 30 million to compensate it for costs it incurred in planting trees over a period of 5 years. It will incur costs in the manner year 1, 1 million, year 2, 2 million, etc. How much should be recognized as income from government grant at the end of year 1? So, dali lang yan. Lagay ko lang year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How much yung cost natin? Tama ba class? Year 1, nakalagay dyan, 1 million. Year 2, 2 million. Year 3, 3 million. Year 4, 4 million. And year 5, 5 million. Total natin, 1 plus 2 is 3, 6, 10, 15 million yung cost natin. Ha? How much class yung government grant na na-receive natin? 30 million. Allocate natin. How much yung income from government grant? So, 1 over 15 times 30, that is 2 million. Okay? 2 over 15 times 30, that is 4 million. 3 over 15 times 30, that is 6 million. And then 4 over 15 times 30, that is 8 million. And 5 over 15 times 30, that is 10 million. Tanong sa ating class, year 1, complete ko na lahat para alam natin kung how much yung per year. Year 1 is just 2 million. Letter C. Easy. Yan lang. Yan lang kasimple. Pag tinanong year 2, 4 million. Year 3, 6. Year 4, 8. And year 5, 10 million. Okay. Let's go to main problem number 2. On January 1, 2020, Elizol Corporation received a grant of 75 million from the government for the construction of laboratory research and facility with an estimated cost of 90 million and useful life of 25 years. The facility was completed in early 2021. The amount to be recognized in its 2021 profit or loss income from government grant, how much na receive natin class? 75 million. And then, bibuild tayo ng research facility na may useful life of 25 years. Kung paano ka mag-depreciate, ganun ka rin mag-recognize ng government grant. Divide natin by 25. Sagot natin yung class, 75 million divided by 25. That is 3 million. Letter C. Let's go to main problem number 3. Okay, Cecilia Corporation was granted 2,500 acres of land in a village located near the slums outside the city limits, etc. The condition attached to this grant was that it should clean up this land and lay roads by employing laborers from the village in which the land is located. The government has fixed the minimum wage. The entire operation will take 3 years and it is estimated to cost 50 million. Okay, so lagay natin years 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so 50 million daw yung total. O, tignan natin kung paano may incur yung 50 million. This amount will be spent in this way. 10 million first year. Okay, each in first and second year. And then 30 million in the third year. The fair value of the land is currently 60 million. Kapag non-cash asset, yung binigay sa atin ng government at fair value yan. So, yung total na income from government grant natin na i-recognize for 3 years is 60 million. Okay, so how much yung income natin per year? First year lang yung tanong. 10 divided by 50 times 60 million. Okay, that is 12 million. 12 million din yung year 2 kasi 10 million din yung cost. 30 over 50 times 60, that is 36 million. Okay, so tuloy na sa ating class is year 1. Ibig sabihin class, ang sagot natin, 12 million. Pag tinanong year 2, 12 million din. Pag year 3, 36 million. Sagot natin for main problem number 3 is boy. Okay, let's go to main problem number 4. Elmer Company Corporation, okay, receive a consolidated grant of 60 million. Lagyan natin yan, 60 million. 3/4 of the grant is to be utilized to purchase a college building. So how much yung 3/4 yan? 60 times 3 over 4, that is 45 million. So yung 3/4, which is 45 million, okay, sabi dyan, gagamitin daw for the building. For students from underdeveloped or developing countries. The balance of the grant, yung 1/4, ano ba yung 1/4 ng 60 million? That is 15 million. Gagamitin naman siya, okay, subsidizing the tuition cost of those students for 4 years. O, divide mo sa 4. Hanggang lang kasimple yan. So, 15 million divided by 4, that is, yung income natin dyan, 3.75 million. Okay, let's continue reading. The college building, yung para sa 45 million, kasi sabi dyan, yung 45 million para daw sa college building. Okay? The college building, which costs 50 million, will be depreciated using straight line method over 10 years. Okay, divide by 10. So, 45 million divided by 10, that's 4.5 million. And assuming the tuition subsidy will be offered evenly over a period of 4 years, the amount should be recognized as income at the end of the year is 4.5 plus 3.75. That gives you 8.25. Letter C, 8.25. Okay. Now, let's go to, well, concept muna ulit tayo. Now, sabi ko earlier class na as to presentation, okay, punta tayo dito, initially, nire-recognize natin yung government grant as a liability. Okay, but yung PS20 actually nagbigay ng option. 2 options. Number 1 is, well, as liability. Okay, so in this case, ang ginamit natin is deferred income from government grant. Okay, so since matagalan yan, usually couple of years bago masatisfy yung mga conditions, non-current liability yan. Okay, and if the problem is silent, ito yung assumption natin, liability pine-present. Pero may alternative actually. An alternative natin is deduction from asset. deduction from asset. Basically, ino-offset natin yung government grant dun sa asset na condition. Okay, so papakita ko na lang class. So ulitin ko, meron tayong for presentation purposes. In the balance sheet, pwede mo siya i-present as liability. Pag problem is silent, liability. Okay, pero allowed din tayo na diretso offset mo yan sa asset or deduction from asset. Okay, let's go to illustrative example number 2. Illustrative example number 2. Okay, so muna class. Pakita ko sa inyo kung paano yung another way of presentation. Okay, so let's read the given. Tingnan mo natin yung requirement. Requirement is prepare the journal entries for the year, assuming the grant is accounted for as deferred income, yun yung DIGG, liability, and deduction from asset. Okay, so ganito gagawin ko dyan. Illustrative example number 2. Dito yung A, okay? And then, sige, tingnan mo natin. At the beginning of current year, Mr. Accounting Company purchased a machine for 7 million and received a government grant of 1 million toward the capital cost. The machine is to be depreciated, straight line over 5 years, and estimated to have residual value 500,000. Compute natin yung depreciation. Tama ba? Yung cost of machine is 7 million minus residual value of 500,000. I-divide mo class by 5, yun yung useful life. Na-compute mo ba yung 1.3 million depreciation expense? Yes. Okay. Entry natin class under the deferred income approach or yung liability, ito na yung alam natin, is simply, okay, bumili mo tayo ng machinery, debit machinery, credit cash, tama ba? 7 million, right? And then binigyan tayo ng government grant na 1 million, debit cash, credit DIGG, 1 million. Let's depreciate, debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, na-compute natin earlier, 1.3 million. And then, since meron tayong expense, pwede tayo mag-recognize sa income, debit DIGG, credit IGG, so how much yun? 1 million, divide natin sa useful life of 5 years, that is 200,000. Alright, so ito yung alam natin. So ito yung deferred income. Now, gusto ko lang i-point out din class kung how much yung effect in the P&L, the profit or loss. Tignan natin. Well, nag-recognize tayo ng expense, tama ba? Depreciation expense, that's syempre negative yan, 1.3 million. Alright? And then nag-recognize tayo ng income na 200,000. So IGG plus 200,000. Tama ba class yung net effect to P&L is minus 1.1 million. So, bababa tayo ng 1.1 million in our income statement. Okay? Now, sir, paano naman yung sinasabi mo na deduction from asset? Okay, pakita natin class para ma-differentiate natin. Pag deduction from asset, debit machinery, credit cash, same. Okay? That is 7 million. Now, yung government grant na binigay sa atin na 1 million, yung entry mo dyan, debit cash, credit, machinery. Ayun, doon nagkaiba. Instead na DIGG, in-offset mo na dun sa machinery. Okay? Kaya sabi ko kanina, kapag deduction from asset, ino-offset mo siya. Debit machinery, credit cash, nung bumili tayo, same entry. Nung na-receive natin yung government grant, doon nagkaiba. Kanina, DIGG, ngayon naman, diretso offset ka sa machinery. Tama ba class? 7 million minus 1 million, naging 6 million na lang yung machinery natin. Okay? Let's record depreciation. Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. How much? Yung class, 6 million, yung machinery natin, minus yung useful life na 500,000, 6 million minus 500,000, divided by 5 years. Na-compute mo ba yung 1.1 million? Yes, 1.1 million. Now, kung titignan mo yung P&L effect, right? So, P&L effect, well, meron tayong depreciation expense na 1.1. So, syempre, negative yan, okay, sa income statement natin. Pero wala tayong ni-recognize sa income. Napansin ba, walang debit DIGG, credit IGG, walang ganun dito. Kasi in-offset na natin sa asset yung na-receive natin na grant. Okay? Now, take note na whether deferred income approach or deduction from asset approach, same lang yung effect dun sa P&L natin. Okay, dito, depreciation yung naapektuhan. Instead of 1.3, 1.1 na lang, which is also equal to this one. Okay? So, ganun siya. That's illustrative example number 2. Balik tayo dun, class, sa main problem. Number 5, ganun pa rin. Applied pa rin natin yung deferred income and deduction from asset approach. Mabilisan na lang. Let's go to main problem number 5. Alright. An entity purchased a machine for 6.6 million on January 1 and received a government grant of 600,000. The machine is to be depreciated on a straight line basis over 5 years, residual value of 500,000. Question 1. Assuming the policy is to treat the grant as a reduction in the cost of the asset, okay, what is the depreciation? O, ganun lang gagawin ko dyan. Well, naka-receive ako ng 6.6 million, tama, yung cost ng machine pala ay 6.6 million, and naka-receive ako ng grant na 600,000, i-offset ko yan. Deduction from asset to. So yung net amount natin is 6 million, tama? And then residual value of 500,000, i-divide ko by useful life of 5 years, so how much yung depreciation natin? 6 million minus 500,000 divided by 5, that is 1.1 million. Sagot natin for question number 1, letter A. Okay? Question number 2. Assuming the policy is to treat the grant as a deferred income or a liability, what is the total impact to P&L? Well, alam natin, dapat ito rin yung impact niya. Pero i-prove natin. So, yung depreciation, okay, so how do you compute for depreciation? 6.6 million minus residual value of 500,000, i-divide natin by 5 years. 6.6 million minus 500,000 divided by 5, That gives you 1,220,000. Ito yung depreciation expense. Alright? Now, meron tayong debit DIGG, credit IGG. Okay? So, how much yung IGG natin? Na-receive natin ng government grant is 600,000. I-divide mo by useful life na 5 years. So, 600,000 divided by 5. That gives you 120,000. So, yung depreciation kanina class, negative yan kasi expense yan. Ito naman, yung IGG, positive. So, how much yung net amount yan? 1,220. And then, minus natin yung 120. That gives you 1.1 million negative. Right? So, answer mo dyan, letter A. A for question 1, A for question 2. Okay, now, let's answer some special accounting issues no, sa government grant. Madali lang naman yan. Let's go to illustrative example number 3. Illustrative example number 3. Okay, so this is about forgivable loan. So, ano example yan, sir? Let's say, class, tayo si ABC Company, and then nag-loan tayo from GSIS. Okay? So, GSIS, o kaya naman, SSS or Pag-ibig. Ayan, yun yung mga government agency na pwede tayo mag-loan. Okay, nag-loan yan kay ABC. Alright? So, illustrative example number 3. Now, let's read the given. On January 1, 2025, because of an exemplary accomplishment that brought international recognition to the community, the government waived the repayment of CPA Company's loan balance. So, CPA Company pala. Okay. With a carrying amount of 200,000. Okay. Prepare the journal entry of the above transaction. Nung nag-loan sa atin, si GSIS, for example, debit, cash, credit, loans payable. Okay? So, 200,000. Now, nung finorgive yung loan, sabi dyan, because of international recognition daw to the community, finorgive na, hindi natin kailangan bayaran. Debit, loans payable, credit, income from government grant. Okay? Ganun ka simple. At carrying amount. Debit, loans payable, carrying amount, credit, income from government grant. Okay? So, ganyan lang siya, class, kapag merong forgivable loan. Let's go to illustrative example number 4. Nakalagay dyan, loan at below market interest rate. Nag-loan sa atin, si GSIS, SSS, and Pag-ibig. Let's say, class, yung market rate at 10% dapat. Pero ang binigay lang sa atin is, let's say, 3% below market rate. Okay? So, mas maliit yung interest na babayaran natin. So, paano yan? Ano gagawin natin yan, sir? Okay, so let's read the given. BSA Company is provided a grant by a foreign government for the purpose of acquiring land for a building. The grant is zero interest. So, dito, zero interest. For 5 years, evidenced by a promissory note. The loan was granted on January 1, 2025 for 8 million. The market interest rate is 6% and then the present value is 0.7473. So, dito natin gawing class yung illustrative example number 4. Ganun gawin ko dyan. Journal entry natin class, nung nag-provide ng loan sa atin, debit cash, how much? 8 million. Credit, loans payable, 8 million. Pero alam natin class, kapag magre-record ka ng zero interest bearing, kailangan i-present value mo yan. Okay, how much yung present value? 8 million times, multiply natin dun sa present value factor, so 8 million, times 0.7473. Na-compute nyo ba yung 5,978,400? Yes. So, ito yung present value. 5,978,400. Now, since yung principal natin is 8 million, tama ba class yung difference ng principal and yung present value natin? Minus 8 million to 021,600. This is a discount on loans payable. Tama? So, ganito yung entry dyan. Debit cash, debit discount on loans payable to 021,600. Credit DIGG. Ayun. 2021600. Alright? So, basically, yung natipid natin, which is zero interest siya, tama? Yun yung i-DIGG natin. Eh, sir, paano yung recognition yan? Na debit DIGG, credit IGG, every December 31. Papakita ko sa inyo, class. December 31, 2025, mag-a-amortize tayo. Kasi, naka-present value yan. Kailangan i-future value natin or i-amortize natin. Paano yun, sir? Debit interest expense. Credit discount on loans payable. How much? So, multiply lang natin. Yung present value, 5,978. 400, multiply natin by 6% times 0.06. Nakuha nyo ba class yung 358,724? Okay. So, 704. Okay. So, 358,704. Yan yung amortization natin. Iyan din yung amount ng IGG natin. Gets? So, debit DIGG, credit IGG, 358,704. Okay. So, yan yung journal entries natin. In short, kapag merong loan at below market interest rate, in this case, 0% yung binigay sa atin, yung amount na amortization natin every year, yun din yung income from government grant. So, amortization, yun din yung income natin. Initially, yung DIGG mo is basically the difference between the principal 8 million and the present value, yung discount natin. Okay? So yeah, that's how you do it. And then last, I think last problem na to for this topic, what if there's a repayment of grant? So alam natin class, in a government grant, may naka-attach na condition. Tama? And then as we perform the condition, doon tayo nag-recognize ng income. Pero what if, anong nangyari class, hindi tayo nakapag-comply with the conditions. Ano mangyayari dyan? May repayment. Ibabalik natin yung grant dun sa government. So, punta tayo dun sa illustrative example number 5. Okay. Prepare the journal entries daw. ABC Company purchased a machine for 3 million on January 1, 2025. So, journalize na natin. January 1, 2025, debit machinery, credit cash, 3 million. ABC received a grant of 500,000 in respect of this asset. Debit cash, credit DIGG, 500,000. The policy is to depreciate the asset over 5 years and to treat the grant as deferred income. Pag silent, ganoon naman yung ginagawa natin. So, December 31, 2025, depreciate tayo class. Debit depreciation expense, okay? Credit, purchase sa machine. Yes, tama. Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation. How much yung machine mo? 3 million, tama? 3 million, i-divide natin by useful life of 5 years. Divide by 5, that is 600,000. Tama? So, debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 600,000. Meron na expense, so matching principal, mag-recognize na ng income. Debit DIGG, credit IGG, 500,000 divided by useful life na 5 years, that's 100,000. Alright? So, walang problema. December 31, 2026. Same lang yung entry. Lagay ko lang same. Debit depreciation expense, credit accumulated depreciation, 600,000. Debit DIGG, credit IGG, 100,000. Now, in 2027, January 1, 2027, the grant became fully repayable because of non-compliance. Ibabalik natin sa government yung grant. How much yung grant na binigay sa atin? 500,000. Okay? Now, kung gagawa tayo ng T-account sa DIGG, tama ba class? 500,000 yung original yan. Noong 2025, nag-recognize tayo ng 100,000, so debit 100. And then sa 2026, ganun din, 100. So, yung balance ng DIGG natin is 300,000. Kailangan natin ibalik yung binigay sa atin na grant. How much yung binigay sa atin? 500,000. Yun yung credit cash natin. So, entry natin class, debit DIGG, tanggalin mo na rin sa books mo yan. 300,000, ibalik mo yung cash na na-receive mo initially, which is 500,000. Difference na yung class, yung cash na binalik natin, and yung liability, meron tayong debit loss on repayment of government grant. Debit loss on repayment of the government grant, 200,000. Okay? So, yun yung entry natin. Debit DIGG kasi yun yung balance ng DIGG natin. Tatanggalin natin sa books yan. Wala tayong utang kasi binalik natin sa government. How much ibabalik mo? Yung na-receive mo. Hindi lang 300, yung 500,000 na na-receive mo initially. Balancing figure, loss on repayment. Take note class na hindi na natin pinakialaman yung mga na-recognize natin na IGG sa 2025 and 2026. Kasi this is as if meron tayong change in estimate. Alam natin, pag change in estimate, prospective yung application or moving forward. Hindi mo napapakialaman yung mga ni-record mo na previously. Okay? So tandaan mo yun. Alright, so that's illustrative example number 5. I think na-discuss natin lahat ng possible scenarios na may encounter mo for government grants. Double check ko lang kung sagutan natin lahat. I think yes. Okay, and okay, so theory questions na tayo. Let's go to theory number 1. These are assistance by government in the form of transfer of resources to an entity in return for past or future compliance, okay, with certain conditions relating to operating activities, letter B, government grants. Pag future compliance, yun yung government grant related to asset. Pag past compliance, yun yung government grant related to income. Kasi kapag may losses, past na yan. Nakapag-comply ka na. Okay? As if complied na yan. So, yun yung ibig sabihin yan. Boy for number 1. Number 2, it is an action by government designed to provide an economic benefit specific to an entity. Underline mo yung specific to an entity or range of entities qualifying under certain criteria. Actually, dinefine din yan sa PAS-20. And this is the definition of government assistance. So, ilagay mo dyan, letter A, government assistance. Isipin mo lang, class, na yung government assistance, GA na lang. So, basta yan, lahat ng assistance from the government yan. Whether may condition or walang condition. Okay? Kaya parang umbrella term yan. Under government assistance, merong government grant. Pero ang important concept sa government assistance is specific to an entity yan. Specific to an entity. Okay? So, ano ibig sabihin mo dun, sir? O, tingnan natin yung number 3. Basta for number 2, A na yung sagot mo dyan. Number 3, which can be considered as a government assistance. A, imposition of trading constraints on competitors. Well, maraming affected yan. Again, specific. Ibig sabihin, yung entity lang yung magbe-benefit. For A, maraming magbe-benefit dyan. Okay? B, improve facilities such as irrigation or water supply. Maraming yung public magbe-benefit dyan. So, hindi specific. Letter C, yung specific. Free technical or marketing advice and provision of guarantee. Yung mismo entity lang o yung company lang, siya lang yung magbe-benefit dyan. Letter C, yung sagot mo dyan. Dog, infrastructure by improvement to general transport and communication network. Public yung magbe-benefit dyan. So again, pag sinabi mong government assistance, yung company lang o yung entity lang yung magbe-benefit. Pag ang magbe-benefit is marami or public, such as A, B, and DOG, hindi yan government assistance. So that's why letter C yung sagot natin for number 3. Number 4, under PAS-20, a government grant shall be recognized when there is reasonable assurance that the entity will comply with the conditions and the grant will be received. DOG for number 4. Number 5, which of the following statements is true about government grant? A, government grant related to asset is accounted for as deferred income or deduction, tama, from carrying amount. Boy, grant related to income is presented as other income or a deduction from expense. Diba na-mention ko earlier, pinakauna, na pwedeng mag-credit ka ng expense. Pero ang mas preferred way is debit DIGG, credit IGG. Yun yung ibig sabihin dito. Okay? Letter C, a forgivable loan from the government is treated as a government grant if there's a reasonable assurance that the entity will meet the terms for forgiveness. So naalala nyo kanina, entry natin, debit, loans payable, credit, income from government grant. So tama rin yan. Dog yung sagot natin dyan. All the statements are true. Number 6, which of the following is true regarding the income approach? Pag income approach, ano ibig sabihin nun? Ibig sabihin nun, ito. Debit DIGG, credit IGG. So, liability natin nire-report. Okay? A, depreciation is higher if the government grant is an adjustment of the asset. Mali yan. Kasi kapag adjustment of the asset or deduction from asset, mas mababa yung depreciation natin. Tama? Na-prove na natin earlier yon. So, A is, mali. Dapat yan, lower. Boy, depreciation is lower and net income is lower if the grant is an adjustment of asset. Mali. Pag adjustment to asset, okay, pag deduction from asset, mababa yung depreciation. So, depreciation is lower and net income is higher. So, mali din yung boy. Punta tayo sa C. Depreciation is higher if the grant is a deferred revenue and net income is not affected. Actually, ito tama yung class. So, for example, ang entry natin, debit depreciation expense. For example na lang, credit accumulated depreciation 100,000. And then yung recognition ng income natin, since nakalagay dyan, deferred revenue daw. So, debit DIGG, credit IGG, assuming same amount, 100,000. So, expense natin is 100,000, income natin is 100,000, therefore, zero yung net effect sa net income. Kaya tama yung C. Okay? Assuming, same amount yung depreciation expense and income from government grant. Basahin ulit natin. Depreciation is higher, syempre, kapag deferred revenue. Kapag hindi naka-offset sa asset, mas mataas yung depreciation. And net income is not affected, assuming same yung depreciation expense and yung income from government grant. So, ang best answer for this question is letter C. Okay? Sige. Nakalagay sa D, depreciation is higher and net income is lower if the grant is recorded as deferred revenue. Hindi. Whether deferred revenue or reductions sa asset, same yung effect sa P&L. Kaya mali yung dog. Best answer, letter C for number 6. Number 7, in case of a non-monetary grant, which of the following is prescribed by PS20? For example, land yung na-receive natin. Sabi ko, fair value. Okay? C. Record both the grant and the asset at fair value of the non-monetary asset. Letter C for number 7. Number 8, which is incorrect concerning recognition of government grant as income. A. Grants in recognition of specific expenses should be recognized as income over the period of related expenses. Yes. Matching principle. Boy, grants related to depreciable assets should be recognized as income over the periods and in proportion to the depreciation. Yes. Di-divide natin by the useful life. And sabi ko sa inyo, kapag straight line, yung depreciation, straight line din yung recognition. Pag double declining din yung recognition ng income. Pag SYD din. Ima-match natin sila. C. Grants related to non-depreciable assets requiring fulfillment of certain conditions should be recognized as income over the periods which bear the cost of meeting. That's also correct. Dog yung mali dyan. Government grants that become receivable as compensation for expenses or losses already incurred. Ito, yung related to income. For the purpose of giving immediate financial support with no future related cost should be recognized as adjustment to retained earnings. Hindi, wala naman tayo inaral na ganun. Kapag na-incur na yung loss, debit, cash, credit, IGG. Okay, wala ka ng DIGG. So, mali yan. Recognize mo na agad as income, hindi retained earnings. Dog for number 8. Number 9, FYI na lang to class, which of these disclosures is not required? A is required. The accounting policy adopted for government grants, including methods of presentation. Required yan. Boy is also required. Unfulfilled conditions and other contingencies. C is not required. The names of the government agencies. For example, GSIS, SSS, Pag-ibig. Hindi mo na kailangan i-report yun sa notes to financial statements. Hindi na kailangan yan. C yung sagot natin. Dog is required. The nature and extent of government grants recognized in the financial statements. For number 9, letter C. And number 10, when government grants related to income became repayable. Ito, kanina. Due to non-fulfillment of conditions, the repayment, choose the incorrect statement. Ano daw yung mali? A, should be treated as change in estimate. Yes. Prospective yan. Boy, should be accounted for prospectively. Yes. C, should be first applied against any unamortized deferred revenue. Yes, kaya tayo nag-debit DIGG. Ang mali dyan, dog, should be recognized as debit to retained earnings. Wala kang retained earnings yan. Ang debit mo is loss. Okay, to the extent that the repayment exceeds any deferred income. Since ang question is incorrect, dog yung incorrect. Hindi yan debit to retained earnings. Debit yan to loss. Okay, so that's the end of our discussion on government grants.